reasoning that can corroborate and advance complex thesis that Dr. John P. Irish would admire. Then we drop this screencast like a single that is fire. Student created screencasts for you to like, subscribe, and share. We know you've had all the John Green and Steve Heimler you can bear. If we have the most views by 10 p.m. Eastern on the 5th day, we earn 500 bonus points with virtually guarantees an A. Without much more, fanfare or Jew, we present our digital LEQ.
The differences between the centralization of Africa and the Americas in 1200 through to circa 1450 by Jordan, Segu, Ryan, and Kean. Prompt. In the period from circa 1200 to circa 1450, governments responded to a variety of internal and external factors in order to develop administrative institutions and centralize power. Develop an argument that evaluates the extent to which levels of centralization in the Americas and in Africa differed in this period. Contextualization. During the 1200s through to 1450, the Americas and Africa had different and similar attributes within them both. They both had their own way of governing themselves, an approach to handling certain issues, different types of climate and geography, and also different levels of authoritarian structures and social hierarchies. Thesis. In terms of centralization, both Africa and the Americas have similar features, such as the presence of a social hierarchy during the 1200s to circa 1450. However, African and American economic structures differed because of the difference in available goods and trading partners. The geographical characteristics contrasted due to the difference in climate, and the diplomatic interactions between the American kingdoms and the African kingdoms conveyed that there was a gap in complexity between African state building and American state building. Therefore, the Americas were more centralized than Africa, as Africa relied on a large volume of trade, had a less uniform climate, and had more competition for resources. Big ideas. 1. The economy. What were the similarities and differences between Africa's and the Americas' economic composition, and what affected them? 2. Geography. How did the environments in Africa and the Americas affect the country's resources and economic relationships? And 3. Diplomacy. How did the diplomatic tendencies of the authorities in Africa and the Americas differ, and what were their similarities?
For the following slides, we will use the Mali and Incan empires as examples. Economics. Economics is defined as the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services to increase wealth. The Kingdom of Mali primarily generated revenue via trade and collecting tribute. Mali is most famous for its plentiful gold, and this made it a trading kingdom, most predominantly for the salt gold trade. By the nature of trade, the power of the kingdom is more spread out across different regions. The kingdom generated domestic revenue from a tribute system. Other kingdoms were conquered and basically left to their own devices, as long as they provided tribute and loyalty, leaving those pre-existing kingdoms semi-independent, also decentralizes power. The Incas did not have a traditional currency system. Rather, the government provided any resources the people needed in exchange for labor. People from across the empire would work together to create infrastructure for the empire, such as its iconic roads or religious statues. The system promoted a more centralized government, as at any moment, a group of people could be gathered together, concentrating power with the emperor. Pictured here is a 14th century Catalan map. It shows the wide trading networks that the Malis used, as Mansa Musa is pictured at the very bottom with a golden ingot and scepter in his hands. The key differences between the Mali and Incan Empire was their economic structure. While relying on trade, the Mali decentralizes its own power, as it's split between merchants as well as the government and relies on gold from local communities. The existence of these relatively independent communities, which merely pay tribute, also decentralized powers, as the local leaders are somewhat powerful in their own right, compared to the Inca Empire, which shuffles around its citizens across the empire, making any local leader attempts to consolidate it futile. For the following slides, we'll use the Hausa Kingdom and the Mississippians.
Geography. The Hausa Kingdom was located in northern Central Africa in between the Niger River and Lake Chad and included several city-states within it. In specifics, the Hausa Kingdom was located in the Sahel region and is an arid type of land growing through Africa. From northern Sahara Desert to the southern savanna grassland, it stretches through the northern Air Mountains to the southern Host Plateau, and from eastern Borno to the western Niger Valley. It was mainly around farming communities and had a very arid climate. Mississippi was located in North America and is spread through the southeast, mid-continent, and river valleys also extend through what's called in present time Wisconsin and Minnesota and through the Great Plains. It was implemented with cultivation of many crops, which was hugely based on. There was settlements that had a pyramid structure and oval earth mounds. They manipulated the earth's surface to make higher elevated structures for their religious practices and use it to their advantage. Geography, map, secondary sources, map of Hausa Kingdom. The map was made in order to show to the historical range of the Hausa Kingdom. Purpose. The map above shows a variety of terrains the Hausa Kingdom had to deal with, from plateaus to savannas and deserts. Theme. Theme 1, Humans and Environment. Maps of Mississippian tribes. POV. The map was made to show the different historical Mississippian tribes. Purpose. As the map demonstrates, the region here is far more homogeneous when compared to the different terrains of the Hausa Kingdom. Theme 1, Humans and Environment. Key differences. While there are exceptions on both sides, in general, the African kingdoms were covered a large variety of different terrains, whereas the American kingdoms were more homogeneous. The homogeneity made it more easier for a central authority to administer its kingdom, thus making American kingdoms more centralized. It's simply more difficult to have to administer land of different types with your army. Example of economics, Mali and the Incas. Diplomacy. The Mali Empire interacted with its neighbors in many ways. The weaker and nearby kingdoms were conquered and subjugated, being forced to pay tribute. When they were in conquering, the Mali Empire specialized in trade. The trade networks they relied on while making them very powerful. Decentralized it since they relied on external things for power. The Incas did not have many formidable neighbors. They were a sole superpower in the region. They did not have any other powers to trade with before the Spanish arrived. The neighboring tribes were conquered, and those that were not, such as the people of the Amazon, were left to their own.
It was made to depict old rulers as fear-inducing. While the source may be biased, it is corroborated by local stories. This image was to demonstrate the power and cruelty rulers were capable of. The power is centralized through fear and conquest. There's little competition compared to the old world. On his famous pilgrimage to Mecca, Mansa Musa stopped by Egypt, which among other things, he wowed the Sultan with his humbleness and courtesy. Mansa Musa's diplomatic skills show the type of interactions he needed to excel at. Key differences. The Mali Kingdom needed to at least attempt to cooperate with their border mates, as they were a trading empire at heart. The Inca Empire did not need such diplomacies. They rarely needed to interact with those not under their subjugation. Unlike the Mali, which was a simpler player in the large stage of the world, the Inca were functionally unrivaled in their part of America. This once again centralized power, as there was no competent state to oppose the Inca, and decentralized Mali's power, as they were competing for others for resources. These are our sources. Economy. Though America and Africa benefit off of trade, the goods that were traded made the two different, as Africa benefited from items such as gold, and the Americas gained income from foods such as maize. Geography. The Americas had a more uniform landscape as there were many bodies of water, plains, and hills. Africa had a wider variety of terrains such as mountains and deserts. Diplomacy. The Inca dominated their neighbors with their vast powers, while Mali Empire had also conquered. They also had the diplomatic skills to thrive in their competitive environment.
If you liked that video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one.